Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Grim and Guilty. Not every story we tell ends in tragedy. Some end in survival. Today on Grim and Guilty, we're diving into the story of Kara Robinson Chamberlain, who was just 15 years old when she was kidnapped by a serial killer, held captive, and forced to fight for her life. This is not just a story of what she endured, but how she escaped and how her bravery helped bring a predator to justice. It was June of 2002 in Columbia, South Carolina. Kara was an ordinary teenager. She came from a supportive family, did well in school, and was spending her summer days like so many teens do, just hanging out with friends, enjoying the freedom of being young. That morning, Kara had gone over to a friend's house. Her friend was still inside getting ready, so Kara stepped out to water some plants in the front yard. It was such an everyday, almost boring task. One of those moments you don't think twice about. But that's when everything shifted. A man drove up to the house. That man was Richard Evans, and Kara had just become his latest target. He looked normal enough, mid-30s, playing car, nothing that screamed danger. After making small talk, he pressed a gun to her neck in broad daylight and ordered her into the backseat of his car, where there was a large storage bin. To understand the danger that Kara was in, you have to know who Evanes was. He was 38 years old, a Navy veteran who worked as a salesman. On the surface, he looked ordinary. Average job, average car, divorce, nothing that made neighbors think twice. But beneath that bland exterior was a violent predator. Back in 1996, he had abducted and murdered 16-year-old Sophia Silva, and later that year, he kidnapped sisters Katie and Kristen Lisk, aged just 12 and 15. All three were found murdered, their cases leaving investigators desperate for answers. For years, those crimes went unsolved, and no one knew the man responsible was still out there. Until Kara. Evans drove Kara back to his apartment. What followed were 18 hours of captivity. He tied her up, gagged her, and subjected her to repeated assaults. But Kara did something extraordinary. She stayed calm. She knew panic would only cloud her thinking. Instead, she shifted into survivor mode. She memorized everything: the number of locks on the front door, the street signs she glimpsed when she pulled into his complex, the smell of his apartment, even the brand of shampoo in his bathroom. Every detail could matter later. Kara also studied him, his habits, his personality, even his weaknesses. She kept talking to him, asking questions and listening. The more she humanized herself, the harder it would be for him to kill her. Imagine being 15 years old and thinking like that while staring into the face of evil. That's how sharp Kara's instincts were. The next morning, Evans made a mistake. He left Kara alone, still restrained but not closely guarded, and that's when Kara saw her moment. She wiggled free, slipped out the door, and bolted barefoot into the apartment complex's parking lot. Her heart was pounding, but she didn't stop. She ran straight toward two men doing yard work and begged them for help, and they immediately called 911. When police arrived, Kara didn't just tell them she'd been kidnapped. She gave them play-by-play of Evan's apartment, his car, even his daily habits. The details she provided was beyond anything officers expected from someone who had just escaped a predator. Police quickly identified Richard Evans as the suspect. They moved in, but Evans realized the net was closing. He fled South Carolina, heading south into Florida. What followed was a tense, high-speed chase. Police trailed him down I-95, but before they could take him alive, Evans pulled out a gun and shot himself. His death closed this chapter. But it also opened doors for investigators. Once they searched his home, police discovered evidence linking Evans to earlier crimes. Fibers, personal belongings, and DNA connected him to the unsolved murders of Sophia Silva and the Lisk sisters back in Virginia. For years, those families have been waiting for justice, and now, thanks to Kara's survival, they finally knew the truth about who had taken their daughters. Kara didn't just save herself, she gave other families answers. For most people, escaping something so traumatic would be the end of the story. But for Kara, it was the beginning of a new mission. She went on to become a police officer, dedicating her life to justice and protection. Later, she shifted into public speaking, using her platform to educate others about safety, awareness, and resilience. She also became a wife and a mother, embracing the ordinary life that had almost been stolen from her. Her story is now featured in documentaries and interviews, where she speaks not from a place of fear, but of empowerment. She wants people to know that survival is possible. Even in the darkest moments, Kara Robinson Chamberlain's story is terrifying, but it's also inspiring. She was just 15, held at gunpoint, locked inside a stranger's apartment, yet she stayed calm, thought clearly, and found a way out. Her survival reminds us of something crucial. Evil often hides in plain sight, behind ordinary faces and ordinary homes. But survival often comes down to awareness, instinct, and willpower. Kara's willpower didn't just save her own life, it stopped a predator, brought closure to grieving families, and transformed her into a voice for survivors everywhere. And that's why Kara Robinson's Chamberlain story stands not only as a grim reminder of what danger can look like, but as a shining example of what true resilience really is. Few places in the world spark as much curiosity, fear, and speculation as the Bermuda Triangle. It's a patch of the Atlantic Ocean, often called the Devil's Triangle, blamed for the mysterious disappearances of ships and planes for more than a century. But is it really cursed, or just a legend fueled by stories and coincidence? The Bermuda Triangle isn't an officially recognized region. It's roughly marked by 3 points: Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the island of Bermuda. The area of ocean, about 500,000 square miles, has a reputation for being one of the most dangerous, mysterious stretches of sea in the world. The legend didn't start overnight. Reports of ships going missing in these waters go back hundreds of years. Even Christopher Columbus wrote in his journals in 1492 about strange compass readings near the area. But the legend really caught fire in the 20th century when the media began reporting on a string of baffling disappearances. On December 5th, 1945, five U.S. Navy training planes, known as Flight 19, took off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The weather was good, the pilots were experienced. Leading the unit was U.S. Navy Lieutenant Charles Carroll Tyler, a veteran pilot with more than 2,500 flight hours and a completed combat tour in the Pacific during World War II. That day, they were to execute navigation problem number one, which was a standard U.S. Navy overwater training exercise used during World War II to teach student pilots how to navigate using dead reckoning, compass headings, and time legs over the open ocean. The exercise should have been simple: fly east, turn north, then swing southwest back to base. But not long after takeoff, Taylor radioed that both his compasses were malfunctioning. Other pilots said their instruments were fine, but protocol meant that they had to follow their leader. Believing he was over Florida Keys instead of the open Atlantic, Tyler guided them further northeast, unknowingly taking them further out to sea. Radio transmissions grew tense. One pilot insisted they fly west toward land, but Tyler, convinced of his position, refused. By 5 p.m., the squadron was low on fuel. Their final transmission was haunting. "We're not sure where we are. The ocean looks different." Then silence. A rescue plane, a PBM Mariner with 13 men aboard, was launched, but it disappeared within minutes. A ship nearby reported seeing a massive fireball over the ocean, suggesting the Mariner exploded midair. Over the next 5 days, one of the largest search efforts in naval history covered more than 200,000 square miles. No wreckage from Flight 19 or the rescue plane was ever found. The Navy ultimately labeled the case unknown. The USS Cyclops in 1918, a massive Navy cargo ship with 309 crew members that vanished without a distress call. And her last message simply reported, "Weather fair, all well." Despite extensive searches, no wreckage or bodies were ever recovered, making it the largest non combat loss in life in the U.S. naval history. Star Tiger and Star Ariel in 1948 and 1949. They were British passenger planes that vanished mid flight over the Atlantic on separate routes between the Bermuda and the Caribbean. Both aircraft reported normal conditions before suddenly going silent, without sending a distress call. Despite large scale search operations, no wreckage or remains were ever recovered. Their back to back disappearances remain two of the most iconic mysteries linked to the Bermuda Triangle. And the Witchcraft in 1967, a 23-foot cabin cruiser that radioed for help just offshore from Miami after its captain reported hitting something. But when the Coast Guard arrived minutes later, the boat had vanished. The water was calm, visibility was clear, and no debris or oil slick was found. Despite an extensive search covering hundreds of square miles, neither the vessel nor its two occupants were ever located. In nearly all these cases, no wreckage was ever recovered. The Bermuda Triangle has inspired all kinds of theories: sudden storms or rogue waves, strong underwater currents that pull wreckage down, magnetic anomalies that disrupt compasses, methane gas eruptions from the ocean floor, aliens, time warps, and even underwater cities like Atlantis. Scientists, however, point out that the Bermuda Triangle's incident rate isn't actually higher than any other heavily traveled part of the ocean. Many losses can be traced to human error, unpredictable weather, or poor navigation. Books, documentaries, and movies have kept the legend alive, often exaggerating events or omitting explanations. The mystery sells, but it also keeps the legend alive in our imaginations. The Bermuda Triangle reminds us of the power of storytelling. A few tragedies amplified by the media and wrapped in mystery became one of the world's greatest modern legends. Whether it's a supernatural hotspot or just a dangerous stretch of sea, the Bermuda Triangle captures our fascination because it touches on one of humanity's oldest fears: the vast, unpredictable ocean and the unknown that lies beneath it.